What is up, everybody? Thursday Night Football just ended. Let's talk about the game, baby. Let's roll. You know, watching the game as a podcaster, when that's your profession, you're constantly thinking, like, what do I want to talk about? And in a game like tonight, let's face it, last week, BP fastball on Thursday night. You had the first ever Amazon game. You had Patrick Mahomes, and you had the pretty legendary Justin Herbert performance with broken ribs or shattered rib cartilage or whatever he had going on. Tonight, you know, unless you're from the heartland, Pittsburgh, Ohio, it wasn't the greatest game, but there is a lot going on. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers against a team that we all know is really good in the Browns in terms of their roster. And they have a quarterback that we all can red flag as a human being, but we have to acknowledge when he comes back, they're going to be pretty good. I'm going to start, though, not with the winning team, but with the losing team. And one thing that hit me tonight, and I've been saying this forever, is that Mitch Trubisky is not very good. Nothing personal, nothing against the guy. Honestly, the more good quarterbacks we have in this league, the better. I rooted for him when he was with the Bears. But it really struck me tonight. You know who's fantastic at their jobs? You know what organization is, clearly one of the best right now in the league? The Buffalo Bills. You know why? They draft well. They evaluate their own guys well. And they evaluate outside personnel well. That's the key to being a good organization, right? It's not just drafting well. It's not just deciding who to keep in your own team, but understanding what players on other teams are either undervalued or would be good values for your team. Think about what the Bills did a couple years ago. They traded the 22nd pick, turned out to be Justin Jefferson, for Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs has basically been their Justin Jefferson. What did they realize last year? You know what? We need a backup quarterback. Key word there, backup. A guy who's going to be a good backup quarterback that if our star quarterback goes down, we could function. And you know who that guy was? Mitch Trubisky for $2.5 million. And then this other organization, let's face it, historically has been one of the best, not just in the National Football League, not just in pro sports, but been one of the model organizations in American business when it comes to consistency, right? Very stable. They can handle problems. They've had 3 coaches in the history of the football team. That when you say the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether you work on Wall Street or whether you work in high school football, people go, yeah, it's a high-level place. I got to say, it feels like they're trending. Like, what are we doing? Sign Mitch Trubisky to be our starting quarterback? And listen, I judge you on your actions, not your words. They did not pay him starting quarterback money. They paid him, I think, basically the same as the Bills were paying him, $3 million. So it's not like they gave him $15 million to be the bridge quarterback. But their actions, Tomlin was adamant he's our starting quarterback, and he keeps rolling with them. And listen, you don't need to be some NFL personnel man to see Mitch can move around, pretty good athlete, pretty good arm. But you watch him, you go, I don't know if this guy's a very good quarterback. He can make a throw here, a throw there, a play here with his legs, but over the course of a game, because you have to remember, a game is not one drive. Any talented player in the NFL can have one drive. That's why so many players, what's so unique about football is you can find a guy 6'5", 300 pounds, and you can just get him in a workout. And whether you're Bill Polian, Bill Belichick, or Billy Johnson down the street, you can figure out, God, that's a good athlete. Watch the guy move around. Take a DB type body, 6 feet, 190 pounds. He can just run in a straight line. It's why we've had so many workout warriors in the history of the sport of football, right? Guys from college that are average, go work out well, and then they get drafted and they're just not good NFL players. Like, you just watch Mitch move around and you go, God, it's a pretty talented guy. But the sport of football encapsulates more than just your athletic attributes, your arm strength. Like, you have to play the game. You have to physically handle everything that's being thrown at you, right? If you're a quarterback, guys chasing you, stepping up in the pocket, then mentally reading defenses, make the right checks, and then physically be accurate with a football. And I just watched Mitch Trubisky, and he's just not that good. Now, when it comes to a backup quarterback, I would take him as my backup quarterback every day because he can just function. Most backup quarterbacks, you're immediately losing, right? It's immediately a loss. That's not necessarily Mitch. But if Mitch has to start 5 games, 7 games, a season, and your team isn't basically flawless, never forget, years ago when the Bears won 12 games, I think it was, their defense with Vic Fangio was dominant. I'm pretty sure they led the league that year in defensive touchdowns. Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson had like 10 picks. They were kicking ass and taking names. You know, the Steelers, I removed TJ Watt, like, that's a problem. If I go to the Rams and I remove Aaron Donald, we got issues. And ultimately, Mitch Trubisky is just not good enough to overcome those. And Najee's banged up. They're just not the same. But they are making a mistake every game they start him. Like, you drafted a guy 20th overall who the 49ers, when they sat him behind Jimmy Garoppolo, it made sense, right? Trey Lance was a one-year starter. He needed a lot of work. He was a total project. Jimmy got to start. And Jimmy Garoppolo had a lot of equity. It makes no sense here. Mitch Trubisky has no equity with the team. He's like a $3 million player. Why would you take a guy 20th overall who's a several-year starter, even if you're like, well, you know, he doesn't have the highest ceiling, whatever. What's the point in waiting? I just do not understand, and you're going to lose game after game consistently if you roll out Mitch Trubisky. Hell, the one game they've won against the Cincinnati Bengals, Burrow threw like 25 interceptions in the first half, and they couldn't get a sizable lead because Mitch and their offense is just so average. And you can blame the coordinator, and that always happens. Do you know when a lot of coordinators look shitty, unless you're Russell Wilson's coordinators all those years in Seattle? When your quarterback sucks. You know when your coordinators usually look pretty good? When you have like a top 10 quarterback. I mean, this isn't rocket science. There's only so many coordinators who can take Jimmy Garoppolo and make Super Bowl runs, right? That doesn't usually happen. Even Sean McVay, by the end with Jared Goff, was losing his mind. Kyle, there's a reason they drafted Trey Lance, right? Everyone's searching for that top quarterback. And listen, I don't follow the Pittsburgh Steelers like any Pittsburgh Steeler fan listening, and I know you guys kind of have a hard-on when it comes to Matt Canada sucks. But, like, I watched their quarterback situation. I don't know what he can do. I mean, Mitch is not good, just like Roethlisberger wasn't good last year. And they're not going to make the playoffs if they do not make a quarterback switch. And even that doesn't guarantee them anything. But they got no chance with the guy they're rolling out right now. And on the flip side, a lot of props to Jacoby Brissett. He played very, very well tonight. And one thing's pretty clear. We knew this, but once you see it, it's very evident. The Browns are stacked. And they are actually built for a credible, functional, backup, fringe starting quarterback. Why? They have the best 1-2 running back combination in the league. I had a buddy who is not a GM. He's like the number 2 with his organization. And we were talking like a week ago. And we were talking about the best running backs in the league. He's like, I think the 2 best guys and this is before, this culture in shambles, were Chubb and Jonathan Taylor. He's like, you look at Derrick Henry, the arrow's probably pointing the other way. Those guys are complete backs. And in fairness to Jonathan Taylor, who's a stud, love that guy, you got Matty Ice, you got Frank, that offense is in shambles. Stefanski, that guy could dial up the run game. And you watch Nick Chubb, and his backup is Kareem Hunt, best 1-2 combination in the league. Amari Cooper, one of the more bizarre players, and I've watched his career start to finish. Big-time talent. In a weird way, he's been very productive. I mean, very productive in his career, yet he still feels like an underachiever, but he's a really good player. I know Njoku drives people nuts with the Browns. Freak talent. Obviously, their offensive line's good. Myles Garrett is just a monster. They got other dudes in that front seven. They got good DBs. Like, this team is equipped to just handle a quarterback playing under control. Now, we've seen Jacoby over the years get in over his skis, throw some picks. But if you can run the ball, and right before basically that final joke drive and when the Steelers punted back to him, Hunt, and I went to the box score, Chubb and Hunt had 19 and 11, so they had 30 carries. They definitely ended up with more than 30 carries. To me, if they can get to 30-plus carries a game, they're going to be very competitive with anyone they play, and they're going to play a lot of teams with way less talent. This team, it's not crazy to me that they win until Deshaun Watson gets back. And you could argue Deshaun Watson hasn't played football in almost 2 years. This notion that he's just going to come back and hit the ground running, we saw him, I know it was a preseason game, but you could tell he was tense. Can you imagine just inserting this guy? What's he been doing? Training on the side with Quincy Avery, throwing balls to random dudes who aren't playing in the NFL? That ain't the same of what Jacoby is doing. Now, clearly, from a ceiling standpoint, if he's playing well, he's dramatically better. But we haven't seen the guy play in a long, long time. So if they keep going as they're going, and they're not going to not be competitive as long as they stay relatively healthy because they're too stacked, I think Stefanski's a pretty good coach. Like, it's pretty clear that last year, Baker's not that good. Like, right now, Jacoby Brissett, the way he's playing, is a better player than Baker Mayfield. He's clearly just a more consistent human being. And got to give the Browns props, not for the move with Deshaun Watson. I never would have done it. But just the team that they've built, the team they have together, and clearly they had a lot of faith in Jacoby, and it's kind of proving to not be the wrong decision. And I'll say this. 2 games I went back and peeked at because everyone was like, oh, my God, this was a crazy ending. One was the Falcons and the Rams. Pretty nutty ending, right? They had the punt blocked. Cooper Kupp fumbles the ball. Like, it was batshit crazy. Like, they were killing them, and then some turnovers made it close. To me, the Jets comeback was a little freakish. One, there was a blown coverage. Flacco hits the guy for like 50, 60 yards. Then they get an onside kick right at their star receiver, but it's like, hey, Stefanski, if you've been watching Amari Cooper for a long time, to me, he's not an onside kick type guy. That's a Larry Fitzgerald thing. That's a Julio Jones thing. That ain't Amari Cooper's deal. And listen, it's not everyone's deal, but maybe Hopkins in Arizona, he would be cut out to do onside kicks. Jerry Rice, I mean, that ain't Amari Cooper. So I put that on the coaches as much as I put it on Amari. I blame coaches for putting players who aren't equipped to do certain things in the wrong decision. Either way, that was a pretty freaky ending. I know a lot of people are like, Nick Chubb should have got out of bounds. Well, yeah, if you're like up 1 and it makes it still a 1-score game, it made it a 2-score game. It was 14 points. If the dude just hits the extra point, no problem with Nick Chubb scoring. Ultimately, my point is, they easily could be 2-0. Like, I actually thought the Browns looked pretty damn good in that game. Just a crazy implosion at the end, which was a pretty freaky implosion. Took a blown coverage and an onside kick. That's going to happen once, like every other season. So, to me, the Steelers got to make a quarterback change very quickly. And the Browns, like, I don't think they're going away even with their backup quarterback.